Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Ben Walker, CEO and founder of Arise Hotel Marketing. It's great to have you with us today, whether you're live on the call or if you're watching this after. So, why are we here? In a nutshell, our vision at Arise is to help others arise, whether that's hotels growing their direct bookings, or it could be individuals growing in their knowledge and confidence. These webinars are kind of part of that for us. It's sharing knowledge and actionable insights that you can take away and hopefully use straight away as well. So today we've got the good pleasure of welcoming Pamela Carvell. Pamela's route into hotel marketing is kind of in itself a lesson in the power of a proper marketing education. Having studied languages and before completing a full marketing degree, after that she entered the hotel industry, which it was quite a rare thing at the time. She's one of the handful of people in the sector with that sort of qualification, and kind of gave her a good grounding in international marketing for major companies before finding her way into hospitality. From there, she served as Director of Marketing for Holiday Inn, Marketing Director at Folio Hotels, and Sales and Marketing Consultant for Intercontinental as well. And then she's also, if that's not enough, went on to serve as the chairman of the Hotel Marketing Association for 10 years before becoming the life president. So she truly has, done it all. So yeah, that's kind of why we've titled today's session, The Evolution of Hotel Marketing, Past Lessons and Future Opportunities. And I can't think of a better person to kind of guide us through that topic. So Pamela, a warm welcome. That's kind of obviously, you've done it all, seen it all. Before we start, is there anything I've kind of missed from your background?
No, I think it was pure fluke that I fell into marketing because the degree I did was at Manchester Uni, but it was a BSc Honours in Management Sciences. And it was one of those where, to justify it being a science degree, I had to do things like forecasting, psychology, economics, computer programming. I was actually taught how to program a computer.
Yeah.
Things that I thought and accountancy. I'm actually exempt from part one of the accountancy exams. Things I actually hated, but that actually, as a business person, have stood me in very, very, very good stead over the years. And then I discovered marketing as part of the degree, and therefore then followed those modules, did my dissertation in it. But marketing, yes, as you've said, is a real passion from me. It's one of those things I can never switch off. If I'm scrolling through X at the weekend, to look at the sport, I'm still always sort of looking at what people are doing and what people are saying and whether it's damaging their brand or enhancing their brand and who's reacted, who hasn't. So I think marketing is one of those things. It does genuinely become a passion. It certainly is for me.
Great. And so kind of, first of all, kind of looking into the past, when you kind of think back, even 10, 15 years, what do you think that hotel marketing in particular kind of used to get right that we've since lost?
I think that, and there's a lot said about nowadays about who owns the guest. Now, I have a major problem with that term in the first place, because I think it's wrong to even think of the concept of who owns the guest. To me, it's more about who captivates that guest and looks after that guest. But I think where things were potentially easier were when you had complete control over what was said about you, what photography was out there about you, and the fact that most customers picked up the phone to contact you, to make a booking with you, and therefore you were able to upsell at that point. You were able to engage with the customer at that point. You were able to find out, were they coming to celebrate something in particular or to visit friends? So I think from a marketing perspective, you could do so many more things because you genuinely knew your customer right from that first point of contact, and had control over what they'd seen in the first place. You printed the brochures that they then looked at. You controlled the website they looked at. They couldn't go and see what an influencer had put on Instagram about you, that you couldn't respond to and you had no right of response to. So I think that's one of the big things that were so much better and easier for hotel marketing in the past.
Cool. Looking back, over your years kind of in hotel marketing, which channels or tactics do you think genuinely drove results rather than just being, activity for its sake?
I think any degree of personalization and acknowledgement as to what your guests really want from you, as opposed to what you think they ought to want from you. And I think obviously the beauty of nowadays is that we can personalize. You know, we've got data to help us do that personalization, whereas we used to rely on front office reservations, etc., building up that relationship with the individuals and people paying attention. So you walked into the dining room, they knew who you were, they'd made a point, they would use your name, they'd make a note of what you ate, so the next time you went in, it would be, Miss Carvell, would you like such and such again? Now we very much rely on the data to give us that information. So I think we need to be careful that we don't purely use the data to superficially deliver that personalization, but it's not real personalization. And I've gone slightly away from your question, but some examples. I mean, I'm sure we all get it. I ordered a book for a friend's 6-year-old because I suddenly had to go to a birthday party. And unfortunately, then the various channels assume I've got a 6-year-old somewhere in my life. It was a one-off, and I'm being bombarded by children's books. And they've, you know, or I'm a huge fan of Hotel Chocolat. I have a dairy allergy, so I've never bought anything with milk in it from Hotel Chocolat. And I hold them up as a brand that excels in many ways, and certainly before they were bought out, had amazing brand values and a brand story and so on. But they get it totally wrong with the personalization, in that they continue to bombard me with products I simply cannot consume. And somewhere down the line, they haven't picked up the fact they're not using data AI to analyze the data to say, Miss Carvell is a VIP card holder. She responds to our emails, but guess what? She's never ever bought anything that's got dairy in it. I mean, it's that degree of personalization. Hotels would have managed that in the past by using staff to do that. And I think nowadays we typically are using data to enable us to do that, but we need to use the data correctly to be able to deliver that personalization.
So basically saying that data and AI has massive power moving forwards, but kind of never lose that human element. I suppose that's kind of what you're saying,
100%. I mean, I think we all know about the explosion of budget hotels, which simply didn't exist when I joined the industry. And they have a place where people don't want personal interaction. They want to be able to check themselves in. They don't need to see anybody. And I think it's important, certainly from a marketing perspective, to understand where your hotel sits, because there is a huge percentage of the market, and I'm one of them. I don't want a waiter trying to make conversation with me when I'm having dinner. If I'm with partner, friend, family, I've gone out to interact with them, not to have some waiter trying to chat to me. So I think sometimes hotels need to have greater clarity, and the marketeers certainly need to have greater clarity as to, are we a hotel where we're going to use technology to deliver a seamless experience, and interacting with our staff is not an important part of that. So I'm one of those, I want to sit in my room and zap a QR code and have what I've ordered arrive. I don't want somebody trying to chat to me. I don't want the hassle. I don't want to mess around. But there's other people that obviously want to walk in and get a warm welcome. They want somebody to help them to their room. And I think at the minute there's a lack of clarity, in that you've almost got sort of old school operators saying, oh, we're about people, when to a huge sector of the market, it's not about the people. That's not what we're looking for. We're wanting a seamless experience. Now, I can see we've got Vince on the call now. Hart Shoreditch, very much about creativity, the community, the people. But there's many hotels where that's not really part of why people are going there. And I think from a marketing perspective, you need to have that clarity as to where you sit within that, in terms of, is the personal service important to your customers, or would they really rather be zapping a QR code, checking themselves in, checking themselves out, and just being able to chill and not have anybody trying to interfere or get in the way? They don't want to interact. They don't want to talk to a stranger on reception desk who's asking them if they've had a nice journey. So I think that's an important part of where we sit nowadays with marketing and hotels.
Is there anything else you think has changed with customer behaviour over the years? Obviously, that sort of self-service, convenience-led mindset, there wasn't an option for that years ago. But is there anything else you think has shifted from the consumer point?
Well, I think Obviously, customers now have a right to respond, which they never did, apart from traditionally it was through a good old-fashioned paper guest questionnaire. So the only chance they had to voice an opinion on what they thought was if they bothered to fill in the guest questionnaire, which typically it was less than 1% of guests ever used to do that. Now, it's a good and a bad thing. I think it's great in that if you manage it correctly, and sometimes I despair when I go on to things like TripAdvisor or Google and what have you, and hotels are failing to respond to people's reviews, positive or negative, critical or otherwise, because everybody has that right to respond now. And historically, obviously, guests didn't really have that right to respond. So it was difficult for you to do anything about it, but it also meant you couldn't use that information historically to create better marketing going forwards. I always, when I see reviews, I think you have an amazing, I think one of the first ever uses of AI in hotel marketing that I encountered was getting AI to trawl through all of your reviews and find out not what you think excites customers about staying in your hotel, but what are they actually saying? Because you may be wasting a lot of time talking about your amazing lobby and the fabulous artworks on your walls. And in fact, your customers are talking about, the amazing cocktail that they can get in your bar, that you hadn't realized that your barman does an amazing cocktail that everybody loves. So to me, I think that people have that ability to respond in a way they didn't. But that is an amazing tool for you to use, not just in terms of responding, but from a marketing perspective, to turning that information into, you've actually got customer input into what your USPs are, which may not be the USPs that you thought were the USPs that people would really care about. And I think that's exciting, but you have to manage it properly. If you're not looking at those reviews, and I say you don't need to personally, that to me is where AI is absolutely brilliant. It can do that for you. It can give you a daily report as to what are the top 3 things that people are saying they loved about staying with you, and what are the 3 things they're being most critical of. And you can build on that from a marketing perspective to attract more of that type of guest if you want more of that type of guest. Again, marketing brain has to say, are these the type of people? Those reviews may all be from a coach group that stayed with you a few weeks ago, paid a very low rate, and you wouldn't want them back again. So again, you need to sometimes reflect and consider who those people are that are giving you the feedback, because you don't have, in the past, people could only give you feedback if you knew they'd stayed with you. So you knew who they were, you knew which room they'd stayed in. Nowadays, you often, if they've gone onto Google to place it rather than onto your own website, which, going full circle, I would always encourage a hotel to encourage guests to give them the feedback. And again, to me, an important part of what I would expect an agency to deliver is use whatever, whether it's emailings, whether it's on your website, whatever it is, to get the customers to give the feedback direct to you rather than posting it on a third-party platform. That way you can respond. And that way you can also verify, yes, Miss Carvell stayed in room 302 last week, and oh, she ate in that restaurant, not in that restaurant in our hotel.
Great. You were talking about reviews before, and I think still one issue that I still see quite a bit is people don't encourage reviews enough. I think it's partly probably fear of getting the bad reviews, but obviously you need to know that stuff. But you can always be guaranteed that the people who have a bad experience will leave a review. The ones who have a sublime experience will probably leave a review. The ones in between probably won't. But the more you encourage that, the more you then have a data set to feed to AI, the more, it's obviously better for your SEO. There's so many upsides to it. Yeah, it's collateral for your marketing as well.
I also think it's important to look at all the social media channels, because again, as you say, people who've had a brilliant stay often won't bother to formally contact you or go to TripAdvisor, but what they will do is post something on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or X or whatever. So again, I think it's important, again, particularly with, say, a small independent hotel with limited resources, that's where use AI to trawl social media channels for you, or use an agency to find that information, to find out not just about the formal reviews that you're getting, but where people are posting videos and content on all that multitude of channels that exist that is either positive or negative about you. And as you say, you can then capitalize upon that whether it's reposting or it's incorporating that into your future marketing strategy in a way that historically you simply couldn't have done.
Yes, it's amazing really that user-generated content just didn't exist, did it, in the past? It's a relatively recent phenomenon. So,
I mean,
leverage it.
It is. I mean, I know of an independent hotel that generates 99% of its business through social media. It's a privately owned hotel. The people who own it, they don't even know what TikTok is. So they used agency. And now influencers, and I'm not talking, because it's a small private hotel, so I'm not talking the top, multi-million follower influencers. I'm talking a much smaller level. But they basically, for example, they put a food and beverage promotion together for a couple of weeks. It will fill within 24 hours just from influencers putting something out there about it. And the same if they run room promotions for the summer and so on. They literally within about 24 hours can fill the hotel from having taken advantage of finding the right influencers for their product in their location, because it's a hotel down in Kent. So we're not talking about a global marketplace here or even a national marketplace. But yeah, brilliant example of how you can use influencers to post little videos of walking through your reception and how pretty the spa is and the garden is and all these wonderful things, but coming from a sort of what appears like an independent perspective. It's the old thing. Word of mouth was always one of the most powerful marketing channels way back when it was people standing in the pub talking about where they went last weekend. It's still basically word of mouth that's the most powerful. It's just that it happens to be sitting on social media channels rather than people down the pub having a natter about where they went.
Would you say there's anything from, quote unquote, the old way of doing things that you think still outperforms what people do today?
I don't think so much in terms of outperform, but I think that something that, and some of the audience will know, is obviously I've organised the Hotel Marketing Association's Hotel Marketing Awards for many years, and therefore I get to see all of the entries and the good and the bad of hotel marketing. And it is brilliant compared with what it used to be. But I think there's a lack of people who fully understand the 4 Ps of marketing, which are still primarily what marketing revolves around, which is obviously product, price, place, and promotion. And I think where product has changed in any industry sector is that brand is an important part of product, and the importance of brand in terms of getting customers and getting business is way beyond what it used to be. When we all know with brands like Apple and so on, people place orders for things before they even know what the product's going to be because of the strength of the brand. And I think because so many people nowadays are joining hotel marketing, perhaps because they're experts in a particular channel, so they join via an agency, what they're not doing is looking at marketing as a holistic discipline that must encompass all those 4 things. And you need to understand things like, now brand essence is a relatively new concept compared with the 4 Ps came in way back in the 1960s, even before me. But things like brand essence is, I say, relatively mid-1990s. And if you look at the most successful brands, and I always say as a marketeer, where you learn is from looking at the best brands. You don't look at the best hotel brands, you look at the best brands in the world. You look at who does the best job of emailing you or communicating with you on social media channels. And companies like Nike and Apple, for example, wouldn't exist without having things like brand essence. So I think the 4 Ps are still as important as ever, and anybody working in hotel marketing who doesn't know what they are needs to get themselves educated, because you can do a lot of damage, especially in social media, where it's important to try and have impact, act with speed, be topical, but you can do a lot of damage to the brand you're representing if you say the wrong thing, because anything has the capability to go viral nowadays. So you can, if you made a mistake in years gone by, nobody knew about it, you get a bollocking from the general manager or the ops director or something, but you got away with it in marketing. I remember once when a colleague of mine put the wrong phone number in an ad in the Financial Times, and a restaurant was getting franchise inquiries for Holiday Inns as the world's largest hotel chain. I mean, we're trying to get ourselves out of that. We actually had to pay for a new phone line and all sorts to sort that. Now, that was just, we kept that quiet, paid off the restaurant, sorted it out. Nowadays, because you say the wrong thing and it can go viral, so you can actually never, sometimes potentially never correct it. So I think that The 4Ps haven't changed. I know there's now other Ps get added in other industries where they want to add in people and profit and so on. But I think those 4Ps of let's say, product and brand as part of that is even more important in hotel marketing now, because there is such a proliferation of brands. And it's how do you stand out, especially, if like Hart Shoreditch, you've got a name, but you're also part of a brand. And therefore, anybody that's working in marketing for you must understand your brand personality, your brand values, your brand essence, because everything they're doing on your behalf needs to reflect those. Otherwise, you can damage a lot of the good work that you've done. And I can give a quick little funny example here, because I'm a keen football fan. I'm a diehard Coventry City fan. Of course, we've just got promoted to the Premier League, first time in 25 years. Over the weekend, when we finally knew we were definitely being promoted, we still don't know if we're going to be confirmed as top of the Championship, but Paddy Power on X put out a post that very cynically said, oh, top 6 for relegation from the Premier League for next season, Coventry City. Now, I know that Paddy Power's imagery is somewhat edgy and they are sarcastic. So when there's live games going on the television, if you've got a Chelsea Arsenal game, they will make sarcastic comments. But they overstepped the line with this. And what happened was not just Coventry fans coming out and saying, I will never spend money with Paddy Power ever again. And they were deliberately tagging the other betting companies to say, I'm now going to be spending money. But fans of a host of other clubs all jumped on the bandwagon because they were all chuffed for us. Middlesbrough fans, for example, other clubs who, like Sheffield Wednesday, have had trouble with owners as we have. I mean, there was a massive pylon of thousands and thousands of fans of all clubs saying, I will never use Paddy Power ever again. How dare you? Now, they realised the error of their ways, because a few hours later, because I was watching this is where, as I say, I can never take my marketing hat off, even at the weekend. A couple of hours later, they did sort of almost backtrack and say, oh, look, guys, we really do. Congratulations, Coventry City. But the damage had been done. And so a brand that people have a lot of choices as to where they place their bets. And obviously football fans typically are a large part of the betting community. And a lot of people gave a lot of exposure to their competitors and didn't like what Paddy Power were doing. And that, I trawled through a lot of their tweets to post as it is now to see, and obviously with any social media platform, different people are managing it at different times, or sometimes chatbots are, which is even worse. I'll come on to that in a minute, when chatbots manage your social media or respond for you. And clearly they try to be edgy, but whoever done this, whoever was on duty for those few hours, didn't fully understand the brief. And did a lot of damage, and that will be out there, and it will get raked up again and again, I'm sure. The minute Paddy Power next put a post out about Coventry City, they'll get a few, thousands of people instantly will be piling on again. So if I can just, because obviously the guys will tell we haven't rehearsed any of this, we just sort of wanted to chat to me, I think AI is a brilliant thing, but I again see too many examples online where, and I'm going to use another example of British Airways, who I've always been a huge fan of, huge loyal customer of for decades. They clearly use chatbots for a lot of their responses on channels like X. And it's obvious that nobody at a senior level is managing that and keeping a close eye on it. And the damage they do to their brand. Because typically what happens is somebody will message, oh, you've just cancelled my flight. I'm with 2 small children. You've got no staff on duty at the airport. Help, please. What do I do? I'm stuck with 2 small children, no food, no nappies, nothing. No flight. What do I do? And they get a classic chatbot response that says, please DM us with your flight number and this and that and the other, and of course, what happens at that point is there is a huge pylon. There is a global pylon of people who've had a similar encounter with British Airways, who then add fuel to the fire. So the next minute, you've then got thousands of people globally saying, that happened to me with British Airways. They cancelled my flight 2 weeks ago, etc., etc. And the damage for a brand that spends millions and millions trying to maintain its identity and its place in the marketplace by using chatbots to respond on social media is destroying its own brand. And worse still, nobody at a senior level is managing that. They've clearly and whoever briefed the chatbots has done so to me, there's so many learnings there going forwards in terms of the future of marketing. Is if you're going to brief chatbots, the quality of the brief is very important as to what a chatbot should respond to and what you need a human being to step in on. So, you know, if it says cancel flight in the post, a chatbot shouldn't be answering it, a human being should be picking it up instantly. But then also somebody should be managing that, not waiting, because I'm pretty sure some of these people then don't take it to a DM because they're just so incensed. The first thing they're doing is trying to get hold of another airline who can get them out of that airport. And I think with BA, I keep thinking, at what point is somebody very senior in BA going to look at all their social media presence and evaluate the damage they're doing? Because clearly nobody's doing it, because it hasn't just been going on, you know, for a couple of weeks. This has been going on for months now that I've been watching this unfold, and realizing that nobody at senior level is reevaluating the use of chatbots versus the use of human beings. And again, I think it's the same with hotels, is where do you still let a person do something versus when you can let the technology do something for you? And a lot of that comes down to the quality of the briefing, very much as in the old days, all the briefings we gave to agencies and copywriters and printers, you know, you had to sit and devote time and professionalism to writing those briefs. I think people sometimes don't apply the same amount of thought and discipline when it comes to briefing AI, and they should do. It's a skill set in itself to work out how to brief AI as to what it is you want it to do for you, and to manage that as well on an ongoing basis.
We've kind of touched a bit on sort of brand there. I guess kind of look at the sort of the present day. Do you get a sense that hotels particularly know their brand and stick to it? And if not, how can they get to know their brand?
Well, there was an interesting fact I heard, in fact, quoted by Ipsos, who obviously have access to a lot of data that the rest of us don't, because somebody challenged them about the proliferation of brands, and do the brands themselves even understand, you know, their brand values, standards, etc. And they said the main aim of those large companies is, if everybody is familiar with just one of their brand names, they've succeeded.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to do what we did. When I was marketing director of Holiday Inns, we were the world's largest hotel chain by far. And as we evolved into other brands like Crowne Plaza and budget brands and so on, we had very clearly defined maximum and minimum standards for each of those brands, and we rigorously enforced them. And that made my job as marketing director easy, and my team, because we knew. Then what started to happen even there was, you need properties in certain key locations. And if a developer comes to you and says, I've got this great property, I've got the planning permission, I can build X bedroom, but I want it to be X, you just say, unfortunately, somebody, not marketing, says, oh, you can have that. And that's where, sadly, marketing doesn't, in the hotel industry, have control over the hotel at brand level unless you're an independent hotel. So I think, and I did this as some research for a blog I was writing, I tried to find clarity as to the standards of the various brands of the biggest companies, and it's impossible to do. I mean, it's not even out there in the public domain, and therefore I believe it is development driven, because they want to be in certain locations, and therefore they'll take whatever deal, or developers take whatever deals on the table. Sometimes it's even councils and local bodies that are saying, no, we need that to be 5-star. You know, I've been involved in discussions like that. So no, I don't believe they do, but I don't believe they care as much. What the Hiltons and the Marriotts care about is everybody at least knowing one of their brands, so that at least they'll look for that one brand. They're not expecting people to know, as they did 20, 30 years ago. That was one thing we all prided ourselves in when we subscribed to the hotel guest surveys that were done by the predecessor of Ipsos and BDRC in this country, where we looked at levels of brand awareness and so on, and what people knew about our brands. And there were about 22 UK hotel brands then, and we all meticulously, I mean, it meant the world to us, and we cared very much about our USPs. Now, I think where things have changed is that we all know about storytelling and experiences. I think, and again, because I know Vince is on the call and Hart Shoreditch, is it's about you creating your local USPs and being part of that local marketplace, the buzz, the vibe, that That's what matters. And that's where I think marketeers need to be creative, and they can't take ownership of the brand and the brand name. That's set by somebody else. What they can do is take ownership of how you deliver, either to your local marketplace or people coming to stay with you, a unique experience so that you're creating a USP in that way out of the experience that you're going to deliver. Because that's where operationally you have control over the experience. So you can make it unique. And that's where you're sort of almost playing around with your USPs. So it's not about the brand USPs, it's about your hotel's USPs in delivering a unique experience.
Do you feel that's something where independent hotels in particular have an advantage over chains, or is it, do chains always have that superpower?
No, I think it's one of those things where it's about somebody being creative. It's about, obviously, you need to create an experience or something unique that people actually want to embrace. And therefore, that's where you still need to almost apply the basic disciplines of marketing in terms of what product are you creating and is the demand for that product? Who's your target audience for that product, both in terms of local diners, local people, visitors to the bar, organisers of local functions, and then where's the rest of your business coming from? Is it coming from the rest of the UK? Is it flying in somewhere? So I think both can do it as easily as each other. I think with some independent hotels, they have to be careful that they neglect to carry out the sort of checks that you would carry out if you were a bigger marketing team, where you would say, wait a minute, step back, target audience, target demographics, target audience psychographics, etc., that you would go through all of that. And even when you develop something, you do some form of testing, because I think one of the very important things and a huge positive of marketing nowadays compared with years ago is you can test everything. You can run a competition on a social media channel or a poll to say, we're thinking of doing this, guys. What do you think? Vote. Tell us what you think. Or here's some photos of what we think we'd like to do. What do you think of this? So I think you can test, and I think certainly I find that independent hotels sometimes are perhaps scared of things like testing because they don't necessarily have the statistical skill set to know how to analyze the results that they get, which is where, again, I've always strongly advised, think about where you should use an agency, because to them those things are second nature. They would automatically do it for you. They would analyze things for you. They'll tell you what it means. But I think independents, yes, in theory can react quicker, but the risk is that they create things that aren't necessarily the right thing that will generate, because at the end of the day, I think the one weakness of marketing now and in the past is the good old ROI. The reason I mentioned at the start about my degree was a Bachelor of Science degree, things like the economics and the ROI were drummed into me. You don't spend an hour of your time or a pound of your budget without deciding what the ROI would be up front. And I think I still see that with too many marketing activities, especially where there's so many channels where you can do it yourself, even though that's taking up hours of your marketing team, that there's too many what's called, and I can't take credit for this term, I heard it recently from somebody, vanity metrics. And in marketing, there's too many vanity metrics of, oh, we've got X followers, or it got reposted. Where are the bedroom bookings? Where are the restaurant bookings? If it's not converting to business, then you failed as a marketeer, because that's the only reason, unless you're building a brand and therefore you've got metrics in place to measure brand awareness and what people understand as your brand, you're only doing it to generate business. And that should always be a part of that. So if you're going to invest in creating experiences at hotel level, there is always a cost, whether it's a staffing cost or whatever. And therefore you need to know, or need to at least calculate from day one, what the expected payback of that is. And you couldn't do that without looking at your target demographics. You need to then apply the basic disciplines to be able to work out that ROI.
I guess kind of one last question on sort of the present day, that one thing that's kind of hard to ignore these days is, rising costs, cost of living, increases in taxes. What would your advice to be to kind of hotels, hotel marketers that are sort of feeling that squeeze? What should their reaction be?
Oh, right. Didn't know Ben was going to ask me that. Right, this is going to sound like a strange answer to that question. I am a huge fan of ChatGPT. It's like my second best friend after Alexa. I would ask ChatGPT what I should do, because ChatGPT has access to resources that most of us don't have. And I mean, I've done it with a couple of sort of arms to what I do as a businesswoman, because I dabble in antiques and all sorts of things. And sometimes when I'm thinking, what's the best marketing channel to use? Well, I'll ask ChatGPT, and it'll even offer to put me together a full schedule. Now, with cost of living, because AI has access to a massive economic data, if you know how to ask it the right question, so to say, right, I am a mid-scale, 30-bedroom, I'm in the Yorkshire countryside, I've got a tiny 20-seater restaurant, etc., etc. You need to brief it properly, and you could ask it what it believes potential guests would be looking for, or who ChatGPT thinks your biggest competitor is, because it will trawl a massive information that would take you days and days and days to trawl, if indeed you knew where to look. So I think with a lot of things, and a skill set that you need in marketing nowadays is to know how to ask the question. And if you don't know how to use AI, ask AI how to use AI. So pick something like ChatGPT and ask it what can help you with what. But I think in that scenario, with the cost of living, because we're seeing some hotels are thriving in this situation because people, when they've got some money, want to go away and treat themselves in a spa.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not necessarily going away for a fortnight abroad or what have you. And they'd rather cut back on the weekly shop and not shop at Waitrose, go to Tesco, but then go away for that lovely spa break. So some sectors are booming. You know, not everybody is suffering because of that. So get the information from AI, from somewhere like ChatGPT, which I know may sound like a strange answer, but that's what I would do. If I'm asked a question like that. Now, you may want to fact check what it tells you. I'm not saying take AI answers as gospel, but it certainly gives you a wonderful basis to then go off and learn more. It may make you think of things that you'd never thought of before.
Yeah, I think you have a special name for your AI bot, don't you?
Call him Bert. Yes, because I always talk
Yeah.
to ChatGPT. I never type in. I tend to sort of hold my phone and talk to him as if Bert's sitting there next to me. I think just to finish off with a little funny story is because you know, Ben, I'm qualified in nutrition. It's something I've always been passionate about, healthy eating. So I put content out simply to inspire people to eat more healthily. And of course, I'd asked ChatGPT a few questions, but never divulged that I was qualified. And I asked questions about type 2 diabetes and about the weight loss jabs. And of course, therefore, it assumed I was overweight and unfit and had health issues, and therefore gave me all this advice. And I very angrily said, "Excuse me, Bert, I'm not overweight. I'm a qualified nutrition advisor." Now, what was amazing, and so again, my marketing brain always kicks in, it immediately apologized. It then went back to a lot of things I'd asked it in previous months and then gave me professional replies using more technical medical type language to the questions I previously asked. And therefore, going forwards, it now knows if I ask a question to do with nutrition, that I'm not just asking out of idle curiosity, but I'm asking as a professional. So, yes, I'm a huge fan of my friend Bert.
Yeah, good old Bert. Kind of last question around AI is what role do you think AI should play in content creation, you know, particularly on sort of social media, and kind of where does that fall short?
I think, do you know what? I had to read some content for something recently, and I suddenly started to realize, I was looking into various different hotels, and I suddenly thought, I'm seeing such a similarity. And in fact, I started to keep a note of the terms I kept seeing everywhere. To me, I think AI can be a brilliant prompt for content creation. It can help to inspire you where you're struggling. But I think to allow AI to create content for you is not the way to go. And I think, I mean, I've already seen it where I've helped a couple of friends with small business, because sometimes I as a consultant, work with friends' small businesses. So I end up understanding the bridal sector. And because they've gone and used AI, because they're not marketeers, channels like Facebook are punishing them because it knows that their posts and the booking system and everything have been AI generated. And therefore, whereas they built up an amazing following, they're now getting sort of one like and no reposts of things. And I think the algorithms are going to get more and more clever. So I know we haven't talked about GEO and how GEO has replaced or is replacing SEO. I think if you it would be tempting as a small hotel, for example, to get AI to write all the copy for your new website and what have you, and help you understand GEO. But you'll get punished down the line because the algorithms can detect what is being created by AI, and they're always going to push authenticity higher than they will something that's being AI created. I think it's a great sounding block. I'm a huge fan also of Otter. Now, when I've had to give talks about things, I will create my talk. I will then talk it into Otter, one, because it transcribes it for me. But what Otter then does is say, this is the tone of voice and these are the key takeaways. Now, sometimes they haven't quite been the takeaways I thought that I was giving. And it made me rethink. I didn't have to agree with what Otter said, but it made me revisit and perhaps change a couple of components. So I think I think going forward, you should create, perhaps get some inspiration from AI. You should then create it yourself. By all means, then put it back into AI to get some input. But I think you will get punished long term by all of the algorithms on all the channels if there's too much sameness, because too many people are going to AI to create the content for them.
I was just saying around sort of, if you overuse AI, you will kind of end up blending in, not standing out. So the opportunity is really with imagery, video, you can't fake that with a hotel. It has to be authentic. So even like we're saying, that user generated style content is always really good. Just show it as it is. People will turn up at your hotel, and if you're using fake imagery, they'll be like, this isn't what I booked. This isn't what I signed up for, which never goes well. So I guess kind of just rounding things off, three quick fire questions for you, Pamela. What's one thing that hotels should stop doing? What's one thing they should start doing? And what's one thing they should double down on?
Right, let me tell you one thing they should. I'm going to go with the positive. Let me tell you what the one thing they should start doing is working out what their brand values and their brand essence are. Now, brand essence very quickly is one sentence that encompasses the heart and soul of your brand. So a quick example I've got noted. Nike's is simply authentic athletic performance. Nothing more complicated than that. And Apple's is simplicity that inspires creativity. So I think one thing they should start doing is taking brand values, brand personality, and brand essence more seriously. And every hotel, no matter how small or large, what they're doing, should have very simple statements of those three things. And the entire team in the hotel should understand them, because everybody working in the hotel should deliver. One thing I think they should stop doing is believing that people can do great marketing for you if they've never stayed or dined in your property or competitors. And hotels are very bad at this, and agencies are as guilty as well. To me, you cannot do proper marketing for a hotel unless you've slept there, eaten there, used the spa, and done similarly with the competitors, because otherwise you can't feel what that brand really is. You can't really understand who the customers are, who the target clientele, unless you've been there with them, you've sat in breakfast with them and seen who's there and what matters to them. Sorry, and what was the final thing? And
what's one thing they should double down on?
In what way? What do you mean by?
What should they something they're already doing that they should do more of?
I think more social media. Hotels are always very late adopters to any technology or platform, and they're always so scared of getting it wrong, or they try to formalize it. I think hotels, a hotel typically invests a small fortune in top quality photography. And that's the way most general managers were brought up to do it. And all of a sudden they're being told, no, it's okay to let the gardener do a quick video of the fact you're growing your own carrots that everybody's going to love. And it's that shift in mindset that's actually what customers want to see, is the gardener growing the things in the garden, is to see the kitchen team prepping and what have you. So do more of that. Because so long as you've done what I first said, which is so long as you've ensured the whole team understand the brand values and what your brand is about, so that when they're talking, moving, etc., they're reflecting those values, trust them to create some wonderful content and put it out there. And that's what I think hotels should do far more of, whether they do it themselves or whether they appoint an agency, because obviously an agency can schedule all these things for you and advise you when's the best time to post things, not post things. And also you have to respond if you're going to post. Hotels are very bad. When I look at things like TikTok and Instagram for hotels, it's obvious somebody's posted stuff, but nobody's got the confidence then to respond.
Yeah.
Whether it's even just to say thank you for saying something or what have you. So they're the two things I think hotels could do so much more of, and those that do it certainly produce the results.
Kind of finish off, we have time for a couple of questions. I suppose, Pamela, a question to ask you is, do you have any questions for me?
No, not really. I mean, I just think I think the whole area of hotel marketing is fascinating, and is at one of those moments in time where we don't really know what direction it will go because of AI, because of all the channels, and it's only going to continue. I mean, I think the key thing to me is we have to keep learning. We have to try and keep up to date. We have to keep talking to each other, because that's again how we all learn, is by us all talking to each other, exchanging views on what's working, what's not. I think one thing there seems to be too few of is those sort of get-togethers of sort of forums of us, a mix of agency and hotel owners, operators and marketeers, just chatting and learning from each other and brainstorming. I think there's a huge potential for that, because so much is changing, and we're all struggling to get to grips with it and what is going to work next and won't work.
Absolutely. I think one of the things kind of from chatting to you that I've sort of realized is that there's a lot of principles that are timeless, such as you're saying, the 4 Ps, that's never going to go away. So always bear those in mind and sort of contextualize those to, how does that, and how does your brand essence fit with AI chatbots, for example, or whatever the next thing the future holds. So I think that's a big takeaway for me. That's everything from us today. A huge thank you to Pamela, and of course to everyone who's joined us. Any questions do come to mind after the session. I'm just going to pop our details on the screen. So feel free to reach out, if anything does come up, or you've got kind of any particular situations that you'd like our view on. Brilliant. Thanks again. We hope you're kind of leaving with a few fresh ideas and a few kind of clear next steps of things that you need to work on. Have a great day.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I've really enjoyed it, Ben, and thank you to some of the questions and nice comments I've just quickly picked up. So thank you, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Thank you.